Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here, and welcome to a quick review of Bloodborne, the board game from CMON or CMON, whatever they're called now. I think it's CMON they want to be called. Yeah, I am disappointed in Bloodborne. It is very frustrating, this game, because it does some things so right, and yet there is one element that is completely preventing me from enjoying this game, so much so that I don't think I'm going to be keeping this at all. It's so frustrating for me. And that element is this little strip of cardboard right here, a timer. Now, I do not automatically hate timer in games. I know there are some people that do. If any game has a timer, some people who are into dungeon crawls and adventure games, they just automatically don't like it. And I get that. There are games that have timers that I like. If the timer is used in a thematic way or an interesting way or in a way that encourages me to enjoy the game like on a dramatic, tense level. I just reviewed Champions of Horror, which is a game that I called a possible masterpiece. That has a 6-round timer. I like Legends of Andor. These are games that I can enjoy, and I expect to enjoy them on their terms because I don't have any preconceived notions, and I think they handle their timers well. Coming into Bloodborne, the Bloodborne video game, there is no timer. You can enjoy the game on your own terms. You can play it fast, you can speed run it, which people do, or you can play it slow and take in the surroundings, figure out the story, read the lore. That's the way I like to play the game, very slowly, even when I play it over and over and over and over again. This game, because of the timer, the developers have forced your hand. They have forced you to play this game as a speed run. Really, this game should have been called Bloodborne: Speedrun the board game, because that's what it is. You are forced to partially ignore so many of the cool elements about this game because of the timer. And the timer, it's a dead stop. If you get to the end of this track, it is game over. It is campaign over. You have to start over from the very beginning. And this timer ticks up at the beginning of every single round and whenever the hunters go back to their base camp to level up. So let's talk a little bit about what Bloodborne is. So Bloodborne is a game where you are going to be playing as a number of hunters. The hunters are awesome. The way that they work is super cool. You will have a deck of cards. It is always going to be 12 cards, and this is going to represent the different ways that you move, the different ways you attack, the different ways you block, all of your different things you're going to do. They are associated with 4 different stats. You have like strength, and I think agility, health, and blood tinge, I think that was. The stats don't really matter. They kind of point to a certain theme that the cards are going to have. And then each hunter is going to be represented by what is called a trick weapon. And the trick weapons are definitely the coolest part about the game and the video game, and probably this board game here. I always play with the Kirk hammer, which is a sword which can transform into this giant mallet, and it is so cool. And what was really neat is the way I would play this in the video game by doing a couple quick slashes with the sword part and then transforming it into the huge mallet part to do extra damage. Well, that actually works in the board game. They did a really good job of emulating the way that the weapons work in the video game in a board game form. And with that, with your trick weapon, you're going to be laying cards down to do certain attacks. You're going to be playing a card to flip over to transform the weapon, which is going to clear your attack cards. Certain attacks are going to have a certain speed. So in a lot of these games, the Soulsborne games, you have to commit to your attack. So like a big crushing slam is going to be really slow, but it's going to do a lot of damage. And then the enemies are going to be attacking you back at certain speeds, and faster speeds beat slower speeds. So you might be able to kill the enemy before it does its attack. It might hurt you before you're able to do your attack, but you have to commit to your attacks, and there's this give and take, and the combat in this game is really cool. But we're going to talk about a problem with that in just a minute. But those are the hunters. You are going to be playing through a deck of cards that are going to be representing a campaign. And it's not a long campaign. It's like 3 chapters. You could easily play a whole campaign in like an evening, right? Or a long day. The campaign is really cool. There are different main hunts that you're going to be going on, different stories. There's going to be different side quests that you have to do. And the game uses it has an analog way of like remembering things. I love it when card-based campaign or board games, when they remember things. So, you might flip a card over and it says, if you have this card, because of something you did earlier, reveal this card. If you don't, reveal that card. Well, this game has that. And the campaign system is way more robust and better implemented than I thought it would be. However, there's a problem with it. And yes, that problem has to do with the timer track. So we'll get to that in a minute. But as you go through the campaign, you're going to be exploring Yharnam, Old Yharnam here, Central Yharnam, and you're going to be revealing different tiles. Different enemies are going to be popping out. There will be places where you can spawn in. There will be places where you can search for items and get cool items like these consumables here that can help you in different ways by adding to your strength, allowing you to teleport, allowing you to heal. And basically, you're going to be attempting to solve 3 chapters, each one having a main hunt. And usually you solve those by going through side quests and getting insight. And then you're going to face off against a boss. So all of that sounds really cool. It has one of the coolest combat systems I've seen in a dungeon crawl game. But because of the strict timer, you actively want to avoid fighting as much as possible, because all the fighting does is take time. And as you tick up, the closer you get to this last red node here, that's game over. So you really have to think about your battles wisely. You don't want to fight every enemy. But the combat system is so cool that I want to engage in it. But the game is actively pushing me away from engaging into that system. The campaign is super cool because it has all of these really interesting side quests that you can go on that have little narrative stories, and you can make decisions and you can get cool items and meet interesting NPCs. However, you don't want to do them all because of the timer. That timer, every time you move and you go through a turn to try to get to where you're trying to go and figuring out what happens when you get there, the timer is ticking away towards the game end. And so basically what you're going to do is you want to just rush to try to find like the one that you can solve. If you've already lost and you've done a couple of them and you know one of them is easy, well then the next time you play you're going to run to that one, basically speed running the game, ignoring the things that make this game fun, just so you can win. The third element that is super cool is the way you upgrade your deck of cards. So your deck of cards is always going to have 12 cards. In the Bloodborne game, there's a thing called the Hunter's Dream, and this is where all of the hunters go. That's like their base camp. And you can go to this base camp to kind of like reset your hunter. As you are killing monsters, you're getting blood echoes, which are like these experience points. And then when you go to the Hunter's Dream, you can trade those in for new cards to substitute into your deck. And your decks can get really cool and really interesting. And then you can start doing all kinds of cool things. Like this has been one of my favorite cards here. Where is it? Yeah, this one, like a leaping attack. So you can do a combination move and attack. Really cool. I love leveling up in this game. It is so much fun. It reminds me a little bit of Adventure Tactics in that, like you're building a little deck of cards. However, every time you go to the Hunter's Dream, guess what happens? This ticks up. So if you are playing a single hunter game and you want to go and level up, you go to the Hunter's Dream, that ticks up 1, and then it's the next round already because you're only playing with 1 hunter, so it ticks up again at the beginning of the round. So just to level up, you lose 2 ticks of the timer. These red nodes, that's when the map resets. So if you're fighting enemies and you hit one of these red nodes, those enemies disappear and they go back to their spawn points, kind of like to emulate what happens in the game when you die or when you reload an area, it kind of like resets. And that's okay. Like, I like that. It can be strategic to know, okay, so if I'm here, I better not start fighting this really powerful enemy because it's going to reset and I can't deal enough damage to kill it in one round of combat, so I need to wait until the next period of time. But it's a constant, you are constantly in this game looking at this timer going like, well, I can't engage in this combat even though I want to because it's fun and I might be able to do a cool combo. I have to go over here and do this, because I'm ticking down the time. I want to level up, but if I go here, I'm going to be punished by the timer. It's just, there's so many cool things about this game, but all of them are completely, in my opinion, for me, made totally unfun by this damn timer. And it's a interesting thing because what this game, they were trying to solve a problem, okay? The problem is with games, with video games like this, there is no game over. You just keep playing. Game over is when you turn off your console, okay? Death in these Souls games is you die, your character goes back to the Hunter's Dream or goes back to the first area, the next checkpoint, and you play that same area again, and you play it again and again, getting better. There isn't ever a game over screen. You can't lose except through quitting the game. But in a board game, they needed to make a way to have a win-lose condition because a board game like this needs a way to win and needs a way to lose. But it begs the question. This feels like this timer to have to create a condition to where you lose, so you want to play again to get better to win. It's a band-aid on a problem that was created just by making a game based on the Bloodborne property. So rather than trying to create a solution to a problem, I would have asked myself, why are we even making a Bloodborne game? If you like this theme of like these hunters hunting monsters in kind of a Victorian, steampunky kind of environment setting, but also incorporating cosmic horror and weirdness, just make another game in that theme without it having to be tied to a Bloodborne video game property, so that you don't need to implement a timer as a way to force a game over. It's weird to me. It's like they started off with a problem that they had to fix and they couldn't come up with an interesting way to fix it, so they just added a timer. Now, I know some people are really liking it because it is a puzzle. I mean, every turn, if you do not do the absolutely optimal thing every turn, you're gonna die. I have not been able to beat the first scenario, the first campaign, the Long Hunt. I've tried it twice, and it's just like, yeah, it's just super frustrating. There are so many elements that I like about this game. I love the combat. I rarely like combat in dungeon crawl games. Or usually combat is my least favorite thing. But in a game like Champions of Horror, which I also really liked the combat, I liked the card play. I like the card play here. It's really interesting. It's fun. You can make really cool combos. But I didn't want to engage in too much combat because of the timer. It would be a waste of time. I love the leveling up system, but I didn't want to engage in that because it's a waste of time. It would force me to go closer to a lose condition. I liked the campaign system and how it has your analog remember cards. It has really cool little stories and things to explore on the map, but I didn't want to engage in it because of the timer. This game has forced me to play the game as a speed run. It's forced me to play the game in a way that I don't like to play games. And ultimately, yeah, that's why I am just super bummed with Bloodborne, the board game. Even though it does so many things right, that timer just completely kills it for me. And I know there are like those Uber gamers on BGG. They're like, oh man, you know, I beat this without even taking a hit. Perfect card play. I rushed to the right scenario trigger. I knew where it was, and I beat the game. And everyone's like, yeah, you know, that's awesome. You're such a good gamer. But you know, I just don't play games to be a good gamer. I play games to enjoy the scenarios, to enjoy the mechanisms, to enjoy the story and the interesting, like emergent narrative things that happen. And that just was not possible because of this damn timer. But then if you take out the timer, there's no game over. There's no challenge because you can just keep trying and trying and trying. So that's ultimately why I am disappointed in Bloodborne, the board game. If you're really into these kind of like efficiency, like super strict efficiency puzzles, hand management, where, man, you just need to think through every single turn, making the most crucial, critical, perfect decisions and timing and knowing when to move this timer up to trigger certain things, then you're probably going to love this game because there is a lot to like about it. And if you like that kind of pressure of a timer, you know, you don't want a dungeon crawl, you want a dungeon sprint, you want to emulate speed running a board game, then you will like Bloodborne, and there is a lot to like. So, but yeah, that's it. I am super disappointed in this game, unfortunately. Yeah, it's going to go right away into the sale pile. But I know a lot of people are enjoying it, so if you are, just let me know, and more power to you. I like it when people like things, and I don't like not liking things, but unfortunately that happened with Bloodborne, the board game. All right, guys, take it easy. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.